My name is Matt Faber, and I did my issue paper over immigration reform. So, immigration reform began in 1986 with the signing of the IRCA, which is the Immigration Reform and Control Act, signed by Ronald Reagan. It made it illegal for unauthorized aliens, immigrants, to work in the U.S. So, companies around this time started hiring illegal immigrants to work for cheap, and that's how the stereotype and all of this started right here with the IRCA of 1986. So, due to the increased immigration push that we are seeing today, that all began back in around 1985 when the IRCA was signed. And along with the IRCA was this enforcement first mindset. This mindset goes for all U.S. immigration policy that is being used today, and basically it means that the immigration laws are to be enforced, no questions asked, follow the rule of law. Something interesting I found: the Department of Homeland Security used to their mission statement used to be to seal borders. That has now changed recently. It is now to manage borders rather than sealing borders, because they have came to the conclusion that sealing a border because of the world's climate today is impossible. So some highlights of immigration reform throughout the years. The first one is the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. What that did was it made for local law enforcement agencies to be able to go after illegal immigrants and charge them and go through due process all through local law enforcement. One of the arguments against that was that local law enforcement could be racist towards the immigrants, which I found to be true in most cases. The second was the Proposition 187 in California in 1994. Proposition 187 was a vote that made it that passed through in California that prohibited illegal immigrants from using non-emergency health care, public education, and basically other public services in the state of California. This proposition I think it passed with about 60% of the vote. The problem with this proposition and why it's so looked at is because around 80% of the vote were white people. The third and final highlight, which is the only positive highlight for illegal immigrants, is Padilla versus Kentucky. Padilla versus Kentucky is a Supreme Court case, and long story short, Jose Padilla was a 40-year resident of the United States, originally from Honduras. And even though he was a resident, he was not a citizen. He was caught with a vast amount of marijuana, and deportation was his punishment for the crime. Long story short, his defense attorney did not tell him that deportation was even possible because his attorney thought he had been in the country for too long. So, because of that, this case remanded that immigrants be told of their deportation status, because deportation is classified as civil in the U.S. government because it's not classified as something criminal. Immigrants were not required to know whether the crime they had committed carried deportation. Now, because of this case, they are. So when looking at the debate of the right versus the left, the conservatives versus the liberals in this case, I want you guys to know that everyone's pretty on the same page about illegal immigration being a crime. I know in the news it can make it seem like there are two sides, but the two sides in this debate are not about if illegal immigration is bad or not, but it's about how to enforce the illegal immigration laws that we have. So the right is pretty self-explanatory, along with how immigration runs right now in the U.S., which is the enforcement first mindset, follow the law as written, and enter legally or else. And then the left, when enforcing the law, for example, if we had a Democratic president right now or a liberal president, they would go for a more humanitarian approach. They would use more rhetoric that asserts inclusion, and they would give more citizenship opportunities for illegal immigrants and more chances to seek asylum. Finishing off here, one of the most fascinating things I found through research and through doing this issue paper, and what made me fully believe that college makes you liberal, is I found some things that were actually pretty frightening to me in regards to the United States and how they treat immigrants and how the immigration policy is ran. With that being said, I believe this issue is way more of a cultural issue than a political issue. One of the most interesting facts that I found was this study, and it said that illegal immigration, the people's thought of illegal immigration tends to hit a negative curve when a recession hits. So, with that being said, I'm going to debunk one of the biggest media myths of this recent political era, which is the fact that Obama deported more illegal immigrants in his first 2 years than Trump did in his first 2 years. So when you think about that, you think, no way was that even possible for Obama to do, because Trump's the deporter in chief, or so have said. Basically, it is a fact. Obama did deport more illegal immigrants than Trump did in the first 2 years. The reason being is because of the study that says that the U.S.'s attitude towards illegal immigration trends downward during recession periods. In Obama's first 2 years, the recession was starting, meaning the people of America tighter on money. This meaning that their stereotype of, oh, these immigrants are going to steal our jobs from the IRCA began there. In conclusion, based off that, I would like to say that I think this is a matter of a cultural racism versus a political movement. The movement is for Trump's movement is for Americans to feel proud and they feel like they have a sense of nationalism, while at the same time, our culture is being deteriorated because of immigrants not being let in, because we are a nation built upon immigrants.